and welcome to Ganesh Institute channel. So in today's lecture, we are going to discuss about the making of modern English. So let's begin this session. So first of all, as I told you in previous class, there are three periods, three types of English. First is Old English, and the period for this Old English is 450 to 1100 AD. Make sure you write AD, not BC. Here, it is after the death of Jesus, okay? That's why we are writing 450 to 1100 AD, Anno Domini, okay? Now, let's discuss what's this Old English period all about. See, there are so many changes gradually, and then we got this, modern English, which we are having today. So in every aspect, like in grammar, in in structure, everything has got changed gradually. So what are the features of different eras, different types of English? Okay, so let's first begin about the features of all Old English. Okay, so first of all, this Old English period was full of inflections. Make sure, as I discussed this in last class as well, that inflection means that there are some, endings of sentences with nouns, adjectives, and verbs which remained unchanged. Order doesn't matter in a sentence which is having inflection. Okay, so you can refer to my last class as well if you want to go deeper of this section. Now, if you see, this period had four dialects: Northumbrian, Mercian, West Saxon, and Kentish. So this is based on the region where it originated. Okay, Northumbria, West Saxon, and thereafter we have, see, dialects means a variety of language spoken in one part of a country. Okay, if it is in a part of a country, then we can say it regional dialect, or if it is by people belonging to a particular social class, then we can say social dialect, right? Just like we can identify that, okay, this person is from North India, this person is from South India. Dialect tells about this thing. Okay, how does person speak? Now, moving on to next section, next feature of Old English, which is English. Old English was a synthetic language. In fact, it is a synthetic language. So let me tell you, okay, I'll tell you later what does the synthetic language means in my next slide. So as of now, you just consider that Old English is a synthetic language. All right. Now moving on to next feature, which is in Old English vocabulary. I mean, words are formed. So in Old English, words were formed by just adding prefixes and suffixes. Okay, and the words, most of the words had self-explaining feature. Most of the words are self-explaining compounds. That means the compounds of two or more native words whose meaning is self-evident. Let's say if I'm saying this is because Old English is derived from so many languages. So it may be the chance, like I have written here Gimbrita. Now you might not be aware of this word, but this means in today's modern language gem worker, which is jeweler. Now from gem and worker, we can identify that what does it mean, right? This signifies. So if we break the words into its component, okay, if we break the word into its component, then we can identify the meaning as well. So those words are called self-explaining compounds. So Old English words were self-explaining. Okay. Moreover, Old English is a multi-language period because multi-language, so many languages. See, Old English was influenced by so many languages. First is there was a Celtic influence. So basically, Celtic is a place, or you can say person. English was interacted with Celtic people who conquered, England. And then English interacted with Celtic and some of the names, regional names today as well. You can see Kent, London, Cornwall, York. These all words are Celtic in nature. So these words we have brought from Celtic language. Okay. Then we have Latin influence and Scandinavian influence as well. We will discuss about the words of these influence, these languages in later sections. Okay. Some examples from all of these influences. Now, as I told you, I'll tell you later about synthetic language, right? So basically, this is also important that Old English language is regarded as Anglo-Saxon literature because this is influenced with Anglo-Saxon people. That's why this literature is named as this. All right. Moving on, as I told you about the thing that I'll tell you later about synthetic and analytic language. So basically, inflection language has two classes. One is synthetic and another one is analytical. Okay. So synthetic means presence of inflection and analytical means absence of inflection. As I told you, inflection is having nouns, adjectives, verbs in a sentence where order doesn't matter, right? So if you see here, we have, I have made this mind map sort of thing. You can see here. Basically, in synthetic language, synthetic indicates the relation of words in a sentence, like which is noun, which is pronoun, which is adjective and verb, and it doesn't have order of words, right? As I told you. But analytical, it indicates the use of fixed word order. So like if I say I eat food, you can't write it like, or you can't say it like food like I, or eat I food. You can't change the order. So that's why modern English is analytical. But because we have this old English which we are studying today, uh, this has influence of so many languages. That's why order doesn't matter in this. Okay. Now, noun and adjectives are inflected for four cases in singular and four in plural. Just like we say masculine, feminine, right? Which the name which sounds like men name, so masculine, and which sounds like female name, so feminine, and if it doesn't sound like any of these, so neutral, right? But in Old English, noun and adjectives have four cases. For singular also, four different cases, and for plural, four different. Now, if you see, noun has two things, number and cases. In terms of number, we all know it is same in today's modern English as well, singular and plural, right? Here you can see singular and plural. Now, in case of cases, right? Cases in noun, there are four things. Nominative, I'm talking about Old English, okay? Make sure you are studying Old English and writing for Old English. Now, there are four cases in nouns: nominative, genitive, dative, and accusative. Okay. So, what are these? We'll discuss later in grammar part of aspects of language. Okay. In terms of verbs, as I told you in last class as well, that there were only two verbs in Old English. One is used for both present and future, and one is for past, right? There are three sort of moods in sentences which indicate indicative, subjunctive, and imperative. And in terms of adjectives, we have strong broad category, that is declension, and weak declension. We'll discuss the examples of each and everything in grammar part. But because I didn't want you to just grab it like rote learning, that yes, Old English is synthetic and modern English is analytical. That's why I wanted to give you, just an idea that what does it mean by synthetic and analytical. Okay. Now moving on to our next thing, which is Middle English. So we have covered Old English so far. Now we have come up with Middle English. So this period is between 1100 and 50, it is covering 1100 and 1500 AD. Basically, inflections inflections had started breaking down and get reduced in this period, and that's why it is called as leveled inflection period. All right, and in this period changes occurred in every aspect of language, whether it's vocabulary, whether it's grammar, every aspect. Okay, whether it's pronunciation. So why it is so? Why there was, a change, and we are studying three types of English when it was, sufficient to have Old English only or Middle English? Why we we are just reading these three and English has changed gradually? Why? Because there were, as I told you in last class as well, there are so many factors which influence this, and this is the most important part. We have so many invasions historically, right? Just like Norman conquest happened in 1066. So what happened? There was, French conquest England. French, the William, William the Conqueror became the king of England. This person was a French person. And what happened then? English nobility was replaced by French aristocracy. Now, because English, which was their native language, which was their mother tongue, because of invasion of some other king, had changed into some other language, which was French, right? So now when again another act of parliament was brought up in 1731, when there were some revolutions and French was abolished, then again English came, you know and then that English had some changes, like mix up of French. Some words had been taken from French language, and there was a mix up. So that's why Middle English was coming to picture. So this is how we got the features of Middle English. Okay, and if you see, in our poetries and prose, we can find so many examples of Middle English, like father of English poetry. The poetry of Geoffrey Chaucer was written in Middle English. Okay, now moving on to next section, which is obviously modern English, which we are studying till now, and it has been since 1500. Okay, 1580. Now in modern English there were no inflections because order of sentences matter, right? Order of sentences matters in every aspect. That's why this is standard language. Standardization is there, rules of grammar, everything is standard. And if that standard is not followed, that means you are at fault, right? You are doing something which is not okay, or which is not sounding standard. Now, this language is analytical. Just I explained to you about a synthetic and analytical language, because inflection is not there, order matters. That's why it is analytical. By this time, dictionaries were composed. Okay, and if you ask me that what type of prose or poetries we can find in this era, so Shakespeare is the best example of modern English language. He wrote everything in modern English. He had something in Middle English as well. I mean, some of the proses and some of the poetries, but mostly part is about modern English. Now, if I ask you, what are the factors that influence, that changed Old English into modern English? What were the factors? So you have to understand that firstly, the foremost thing is Renaissance. So basically, people had got interest, people had developed, they revived and renewed interest in English. So that's the main point. Secondly, there was industrial revolution for business and trade purposes. They need an official language, and when different people, like you can identify Indian English and then British English. Accent is different, right? So when people do trade, and then what happened? There was an exchange. And even now there is an exchange of language, and we have got influence of other languages, other accents. So that's why there was a gradual change of old English into modern one. And then we have migration, very, very important. When people just went from places to places to find out, new settlement, new lands, like they moved to USA, Australia, Canada, New Zealand from England, and then they found there was a gradual change in English. And finally, we have imperial colonization of Asian and African lands. Okay, imperial colonization means when there was not a direct control. Imperial means, when there is no autonomy, there is no direct control, but indirect control was there, okay, of that government to people, on its people. Now, if I ask you, after reading all these things, if I ask you what are the events which resulted into the making of modern English, so I think and I'm hoping that you can write the answer in 250 words, isn't it? Just try to write it, and do comment in comment box if you face any problem and how did you find it. Okay, and like this video, please don't forget to like, share and subscribe my channel. See you in next class. Take care till then. Bye bye.